This is BankCents, the podcast that makes sense of all things banking. If there's something you don't understand about banking or finances, you're not alone. Our industry experts are bringing you informative and enjoyable conversations that break down bank jargon and dive into hot-button financial topics. And now, BOS, a community bank located across Illinois and Missouri, presents BankCents. Here's your host, Gregory Morantz.
Hi, and welcome back to BankCents, the podcast that makes sense of all things banking. I'm your host, Greg Morantz, Executive Vice President here at the Bank of Springfield. And on today's episode, I'm excited to talk to you about fraud and some of the scams that are out there in the world today. So today we have a recurring guest on, Matt Stark, who's been on a couple episodes of BankCents in Season 1 and Season 2 to talk about fraud and some of these issues. So Matt, welcome back.
Thank you, Greg. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. As I mentioned, we've had a couple episodes on fraud, but it's something that's ever evolving in our industry and really is always at top of mind for us and our customers as well. So we really thought it was important to bring this back as another topic on BankCents and talk about it again in Season 3. So let's just dive straight into it. As we talked in the past, one of the best ways to monitor fraud and to make sure that your finances are stable and being tracked is to set up daily alerts or other account maintenance items. Can you kind of expand on what that is and kind of recap what we've talked about previously?
Yeah, absolutely. What we try to produce for our customers is an online real-time system where they can monitor their transactions at their fingertips. And that can be 24/7, 365. So in a lot of ways to do that, we know a lot of small businesses may have some ownership that are traveling. They're the HR department, their payroll, their accounts receivable, so they kind of do all of it. So what we try to do is give them the ability to set up alerts based on either monetary values, security features, or just the whole gamut of those options. And that way they can get text or email and be able to monitor their accounts while they're on the go.
Yeah, and that's the nice thing is, whether it be on the personal side or the business side, you can set up those alerts. If you wanted to get a text every time you get a transaction, you could realistically do that. Now, you may not want to get a text every time you receive a transaction, but you can set different limits. If you have a transaction that's over $100 and you want to get notified of that so you can track it a little bit better, they're able to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And that goes from credit cards to checks to ACHs to just as far as even a login. If someone logged in without you knowing, you could get alerted real time and you could take a look and make sure that everything's okay.
Yeah, and we talk all about different products and different ways that you can try to combat this fraud. But I think the top way and the top thing that we always like to pass along to our listeners is that you always need to be watching your accounts and be vigilant because you're the first line of defense in making sure that fraud doesn't happen.
Absolutely. And the quicker the better. And the faster that we know and the customer knows, the quicker and better opportunity we have to maintain and keep those funds in-house.
Yeah, but as you mentioned, we have a lot of small businesses that you have a lot of people wearing different hats, so they can't monitor everything. So we do have some products that can help with that monitoring. And the first one I think we really want to talk about is Positive Pay. Can you explain to our listeners what Positive Pay is? And this is typically catered towards businesses, but explain to them what that product does for the business.
Yeah, Positive Pay is a neat feature where it is a check and ACH fraud prevention tool. So it can work a couple of different ways. One is the customers can upload a check register to our online banking system, which will track things such as the amount, the payee, the issue date, and the check number. And what it does is all the checks that come through the banking system will hit against that report. And if there are any exceptions to that report, if any of those fields are missing or if it's changed, it generates an exception item. The customer gets alerted and they have an opportunity to make the decision on whether to pay or return. And so by doing so, we keep it within a time frame that ensures that they will keep their money 100% of the time if they are on Positive Pay.
Yeah, it's a great tool, and I think one of the really nice things is within the last year, they've updated the product so that it can actually verify the payee. So who you write the check to, it can actually verify if that name's been changed. And I think that was one issue that we saw with a lot of the checks is that all the other information was matching, but the payee had changed. So now that we can track that, it makes the product even more foolproof.
It sure does. The payee was a vulnerability for a long time, and we saw that across the industry. So we took the steps necessary to implement that, where if someone does whitewash the payee and nothing else changes, it'll flag that exception and risk score it.
Yeah, and if we have customers or listeners that aren't using Positive Pay and have more questions, we really encourage you to reach out about it. Even if you just turn the product on so you can monitor all the transactions that go through your account, it's just another layer of monitoring that the customer can use.
Yeah, absolutely. And it goes beyond that too to the ACH now, is where if an ACH is debited or an electronic fund transfer is debited from an account, it can flag that, and you can put thresholds in place as well to make sure that what's clearing the account is good and legitimate.
And, when we're using Positive Pay, we're typically using it when we're writing checks out. And so that's when we're using our vendors or other people we might be writing checks to. And leading into that, one of the important things to do is really looking at that email verification and vendor validation that you can do when you're working with these different vendors and customers.
Absolutely. And we encourage all of our customers to slow down a little bit when they're dealing with their vendors and make sure they're authenticating who they're talking to, whether it's via email, via phone call. If something seems off, slow down, verify outside the original means of communication. So if you're sent an email, you'd want to pick up the phone and call a good number you have on file and validate and make sure that whatever you're being sent, whether it's a PDF with an invoice or an email with a call to action, that it is a legitimate customer of yours and that you trust it.
Yeah, and that's one of the reoccurring themes that we've talked about in our previous episode is slow down, take your time, call a known number. If you have a known number, if you work with Matt or you work with myself or whoever you work with a bank, call that person and verify it if you have any doubt at all. Because as we both know very well, fraud is just absolutely rampant right now, and we need to do everything we can to protect ourselves.
Yes, absolutely true.
Before we wrap everything up, are there any other tips or tricks or any other scams that you're seeing out there right now in the world that our listeners should be aware of?
Yeah, there's a lot of tech scams out there. It's happening and evolving. The fraudsters are getting better and better, but the tech scams where there's some urgency behind it, whether it's unpaid tolls or whether there's a purchase that's invalid at Walmart or whatever store you may have out there, some of the bigger chains, that's what they're really trying to target. And it's a volume game. If they send it to 1,000 people, they're hoping just one.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing you're seeing a lot of now is if you use a third-party payment source like a Zelle, there's a lot of Zelle scams out there, Venmo, and I think that leads you into one thing that we always is a good thing to practice. Don't ever give out your login information to anyone. I think we say that all the time, and it's really obvious, but you'd be surprised how many times that happens with some of our customers. So that's your login. Don't give that out to anyone, even if they're asking, even if they say they can help. If they're trying to get that information from you, that's the perfect time to call a known number.
Exactly right. And there's no reason to ever give out your login credentials for any services that you have. If you're dealing with the legitimate company, they already have access to that information, can help without obtaining that information. And like you said, even if it is the bank calling, you can hang up. That's okay. It's not going to offend us, and call us back at the number to make sure it's legitimate.
Yeah. Well, Matt, thanks again for coming on. I think every time you come on, you teach us something new about the fraud that's out there in the world, and it can be really scary for all of us. But I think the best thing we can do is educate ourselves and be diligent, slow down, take your time with those transactions and when people are asking this information of you. And I think that can help solve a lot of these issues. Is there anything additional you'd like to pass along to our listeners or any other thoughts?
I just say stay diligent out there and take your time and slow down. It's your money, and we want to protect it, and we want you to have it protected.
Yeah, and the big thing I want to pass along too is, unfortunately, these things happen, and we see it every day at the bank. And so if it does happen to you, don't be embarrassed by it, because it does happen. The best thing you can do if you think something like this has happened to you is immediately come to the bank, and we can try to help you sort it out. The quicker we can know and can potentially try to help solve the issue that's out there, the better chance we have of potentially getting that money back. But I think a lot of people typically get embarrassed when something like this happens, and it's totally understandable, but we can do a lot to help you still if this happens, but you just got to let us know.
Absolutely right.
Matt, thanks again for coming on. We really appreciate your insight on the BankCents podcast. As always, if you have any questions, please leave it in the comments below, or you can reach out to us at bankwithbos.com with any additional questions on fraud. As always, this is BankCents, the podcast that makes sense of all things banking. Until next time.
Is there something about banking that doesn't make sense to you? Submit your questions to us on Instagram Messenger or by email, BankCents@bankwithbos.com. Or if you're watching this on YouTube, comment below. We're happy to give you our 2 cents on a wide range of topics. Thank you for listening on Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. And please leave us a 5-star rating and review so we can continue to bring you more educational content. Thank you for listening, and we hope you join us on the next episode of BankCents.